listed a home in Fairfax Station, Virginia for $935,000 and it sold for $990,000. That's $55,000 over the asking price. And my sellers were a little bit skeptical that I could even get that price when we started this whole process. In this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how that happened, every decision that was made, every update that I recommended, every strategic move, because this blueprint is something that you can use if you're thinking about selling your home in Fairfax Station or honestly anywhere in Northern Virginia. I'm Kristen Borstron with eXp Realty, and I specialize in helping sellers navigate this complex market in Northern Virginia. So if you are going through a transition, these are the sellers that I love to work with, whether you're downsizing, upsizing, or relocating. And today is the perfect case study of what works when you factor in seller motivation, you've got to sell a house, and the buyer psychology that played into getting it under contract and closed at a beautiful price. If you're thinking about selling your home in Northern Virginia or Richmond, because I'm actually relocating there too, I get calls and emails all the time from people just like you, and whether you need to do it in 9 days or 90, give me a call. Shoot me a text. I love to have these conversations with sellers. There's probably a link somewhere below that you can book a free, no pressure consultation, because I feel like my job is, I'm here honestly to help you understand the situation of the market and help you make a smooth and profitable transition when going from one home to the next. So let me start at the beginning with this home, because this sale almost didn't happen the way it was supposed to. It ended up being a complete turnaround. When the sellers came to me, they had a tenant in the property, a family with children who had a lease running through the middle of the spring market. And the tenants were not super happy when we told them that we're going to list the property while you're living in it, and you need to show it, and you have kids, you're taking them to school, and you're working from home. So it's completely understandable that they would be like, we don't know if we want to do this, because it creates a real problem. But according to the lease, that's exactly what they agreed to, that we could show the home as they were living in it to potential buyers. But here's the thing. When I walked the home with the tenants in it, I knew that this property could be more than what it was right now. And I knew it was going to take some work that wasn't going to happen while the tenants were living in it. And that work then needed to happen in a vacant home without tenants, because there was no way we were going to get those things done with them living in it. So we talked to the tenants and we kind of made a deal with the renters. We said, listen, if you have a place to go, because they were not going to renew, they wanted to go to a different house, we'll let you out of the lease early with no penalty. You pay for the month that you're in, you leave at the end of the month. And when you're out, we're going to go ahead and do the things that we need to do to get it on the market. You won't have to sell it. All you have to worry about is getting your next place and moving on. So this is something I want sellers to consider when you have a tenant in the home, because this is a conversation worth having. If we hadn't had the conversation with them, we would have shown it on their timeline in the condition that it was. But letting them out of the lease early was genius. It really made the sale so much better. And you're never leaving money on the table when you're selling a home that's ready for market. You're always leaving money on the table if it isn't show ready. So when you have a home to show to potential buyers, right, and you have tenants in there, they have no vested interest in doing that. It's not an ideal situation at all. So let me be real with you, because once the renters were out and I could see the house for exactly what it was, I knew we had a project on our hands and not just some paint and carpet. So the carpeting, it was original. It was in bad shape. It was completely worn through. The paint was dated. It was scuffed. It wasn't a great color for 2026. The lighting had mismatched bulbs. Some bulbs were out. Some fixtures were very old. And it had window coverings straight out of the early 90s. The outlets and the switch plates were yellowed. I think those were original actually. And the house had never been updated for a sale. It was fine for renters, but not for sale. And in Fairfax County, especially the Barrington neighborhood, the buyers who are shopping in this area are looking at homes that sell between $1.1 million and $1.3 million when they're updated or renovated. Our home had an older kitchen, older bathrooms, and older windows. There was no path to $1 million unless we changed that narrative and we did some things to the house. But here's what the house did have. It had great bones. It was a beautiful brick home with 5 bedrooms. It had a full unfinished basement, had great mechanics, and a great roof. All of these things matter when a buyer is doing their due diligence. We just needed buyers to fall in love with as it was, right? And see the potential that they were buying in this neighborhood. So here's exactly what we did. And I want to be very specific here because being vague and giving you kind of wishy-washy advice doesn't really help. I was very strategic in the things that I wanted to do in the house and how we tackled them. So the first thing we did was painted the entire interior of the house. I chose 2 coordinating neutral colors, not white on white, not gray on gray, but 2 beautiful warm tones that played off of each other. This was the single biggest update when you walked into the house more than anything else we did. Fresh paint makes a house feel new, clean, and move-in ready. It's one of the highest ROI updates in real estate, full stop. Carpeting. We knew the carpeting had to go and we were not going to do any luxury flooring because we didn't really know what to pick. So new carpet went in. Buyers walk in, they see it, they can smell it's new carpet. They're like, oh, this looks new, this looks great. They relax a little bit. Old damaged carpet says to a buyer, this home has not been taken care of. New carpet says the opposite. Lighting. We had to change out some of the old recessed lights with their bulbs. We had to replace some of the fixtures, and we wanted to make sure that the whole house felt bright and warm. You'd be amazed at what bad lighting costs you or mismatched bulbs show. Because not only do I take professional pictures, but buyers take pictures as they're going through the house and they send them to people. What do you think about this house? When the house is lit up and it looks beautiful, that's what sells home. Electrical details. So every outlet and light switch in the house got replaced and made sure that everything was working. This is a detail that a lot of sellers don't really think about, but when you have those old yellow, old outlets and cracked switch plates, it does read to a buyer neglect. They don't quite know it, but that's what it reads. Making an investment into this and making it new looking changes everything. Now, we proactively replaced the sump pump. We knew it was kind of going. This was something that I knew was going to come up on an inspection item, and I knew it could kill the momentum that we were going to get. So we took it off the table. We had somebody come and replace the sump pump, period. It was not a negotiating factor at all. And in the garage, we did something unexpected. We epoxied the floor. When buyers walked into the garage, they saw a clean, epoxied floor. Everything was well cared for, and it's a detail in a garage that punches way above its cost. On the outside, because you always have to do something on the outside, we pressure washed the house. We invested in landscaping because curb appeal is the very first thing you want buyers to be attracted by when they pull up into your house or they drive by in your neighborhood. And you only get one impression for the outside. Now, I stated before that the window coverings were old and dated. We removed everything and didn't replace them. We just let the light shine through. And even my sellers were surprised at how different the house looked with outdated curtains. The rooms felt larger, brighter, and more neutral. Buyers then could decide what they wanted for their, for their draperies or their blinds. And then, of course, we had the house professionally cleaned from top to bottom. We caulked everything. We made all of those small fixes and things that needed to be taken care of so that the house looked its best. And from the time the renters moved out to when we listed it, took about 3 weeks. Now, I did not stage this home because you could really tell in this very traditional home what each room was. The family room felt like a family room with a nice fireplace. The dining and living room flowed together. The bones did the work for me. And honestly, I didn't even have time to virtually stage it because my photos weren't even back in time before we got an offer. The total investment for my sellers was around that $25,000 price mark, and the sellers approved it and covered it all. The strategic updates cost a fraction of what they got back. Now let's talk about pricing, because this is where a lot of sellers, and I think some agents, get it wrong. They don't really understand what's going on with the pricing and how buyers are looking at that price. I listed the home at $935,000. This is a fair price for a newly updated condition home, but not fully remodeled, right? It was move-in ready, but not remodeled. The comparable updated homes in the Barrington neighborhood were selling between 1.1 and 1.3. Our home obviously had the older kitchen, older baths, and needed windows. I could not compete at that over $1 million price point, and I wasn't going to pretend otherwise. Our house was not worth that. We didn't have the same things in the same neighborhood that the other homes had. And here's what I understood about this market and our buyers. There is a buyer out there who desperately wanted to be in the Fairfax Station area in Barrington neighborhood. They wanted this neighborhood. They wanted these schools. They wanted this community, and they wanted the space and the true 5-bedroom home that we offered with the unfinished basement that they could finish however they wanted for themselves. They just didn't have or weren't qualified for 1.1 to 1.2 to spend. They just weren't. So pricing it at that $935,000, which was a great price, I was speaking directly to that buyer. I was saying, here is your entry point into this neighborhood. The home is move-in ready. You can live in it exactly as it is. Everything's fixed and it's updated and it looks fresh and clean. You can then over time update the kitchen, the baths, and finish out the basement on your own timeline to what your family needs. That's a very powerful story, and it created quite a bit of competition. I had over 60 families walk through this property, 60. We generated multiple offers, 2 of which were extremely strong, and we ultimately accepted the offer at $990,000, $55,000 over asking, but still under that $1 million mark that was meaningful to the buyer who's not qualified at that price point. So let me say that again. $990,000 on a home that my sellers didn't think we were going to reach $935,000. But we got there because every decision was intentional. The timing, the updates, the pricing, my marketing, it all worked together to tell a clear story to a very specific buyer. This is not a story about a hot market doing all the work. You put a sign in the yard and the house sells the next day. This is a story about understanding what your home really is, what it has to offer, who your buyer really is, and positioning those 2 things perfectly. If I could leave you with one thing from this case study, it's this: know your buyer. Before you even decide on the price of your home, don't worry about what Zillow says, what the market says, whatever. Who's buying this house? In Fairfax Station, there are buyers at every single price point looking for different things. The buyer who's qualified and ready to spend 1.2 or 1.3 wants a renovated kitchen with quartz countertops, new windows, and a finished basement. That was not our buyer. Our buyer was the family who had been priced out of this neighborhood because those fully updated homes in this neighborhood didn't work for them. So they had been watching the Barrington neighborhood for months. They knew the schools. They loved the community. They just kept losing out because the budget for those homes were outside of where they were qualified. We gave them a path to get in. We made the home feel beautiful and move-in ready. We priced it at a number that made them lean forward instead of walk away. And when it came to the offer, they competed hard to win it because they understood exactly what they were getting and what the neighborhood was worth. They knew the potential of this house. This is not just a pricing strategy. This is understanding the buyer who's buying this house. And that's what separates a good sale and getting a good offer from a great one that's going to close. So if you're thinking about selling your home in Fairfax Station, Lorton, or Fairfax County, I would love to have this conversation with you. I have really dialed in this process and I understand what's going on in this market. Every single home has a story to tell and every seller has a goal. My job is to connect those 2 things in a way that gets you the best possible outcome and a new buyer to fall in love with your house. If this video was helpful to you, please give it a like. It helps other homeowners in Northern Virginia find this content. And if you have a specific question about your situation, drop it in the comments. I'll answer it. Or better yet, pick up the phone and give me a call or text, and we'll talk about what's best for you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.